Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Women's History Month interview series with the women of MMPC. Can you please state your name, the institution you're connected to, and your affiliation with the MMPC?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kanisha, for having me. I'm Rachel Perry. I'm an assistant professor of physiology at Yale University. And I'm co-director of the in vivo core of our Yale MMPC. So I've known and worked with the MMPC for about 10 years now.
Amazing, amazing. Were research, science, and academia models for you in order, to help you believe that you could be successful in those fields and the current field that you're in?
That's a great question. I think academia and research are changing so much day to day. So when I was growing up and became interested in science, really in middle school, it looked very different. Being an academic scientist looked very different. So I was fortunate to have great role models, but I think that doing our job is very different now than it was back then.
And you said that this, seed was kind of planted in you in middle school. Was it a specific teacher? Was it a moment that kind of cemented something for you to want to follow this path?
Well, I always enjoyed science classes in school. I really enjoyed the idea that we would be studying something that we didn't know the answer to in science. And so when I first became aware in middle school that being a scientist was a career, that was something that very much appealed to me, but really in more of an abstract sense. And so I actually had that career path really inspired first, I would say, from a practical standpoint, by Dr. David Van Wagener, who was my high school research mentor. I was really fortunate to have the opportunity to do some research over the summer at Cleveland Clinic, and David was my mentor there. And I realize now, as a PI, that having summer high school students does absolutely nothing for the lab, but is a tremendous contribution to society and to future people. And so I really appreciate Dr. Van Wagener for mentoring me in that way. And it's actually been fun and sort of full circle to stay in touch. And he actually invited me to come to Cleveland Clinic and give a talk 20 years later as a PI on my own, which was really special and very much full circle.
I love this, and I agree with you that it's completely full circle. I'm sure your younger self would be so proud of you for how far you've come. What role has working with or for the MMPC played in your career thus far?
Yeah, being part of the MMPC has really exposed me to a much broader spectrum of research tied to metabolism, but focused on many different questions. And so I think that has really enabled me to consider metabolism as its own specialty, but also how metabolism relates to a lot of other areas. And I would not have had that as a grad student or postdoc if I weren't really integrated within the MMPC community and, getting to play a role in really a variety of MMPC studies that we've done. And so since opening my lab, our lab has been primarily focused actually on tumor metabolism, which is an example of that. You have to approach it with these key metabolic techniques that I wouldn't have known without access to the MMPC. And so it certainly has played a foundational role.
It's a word you said that kind of resonated with me because I've been hearing this byline about the MMPC, and when you said community, and when I think community, I also think collaboration. So would you say that your experience has been extremely collaborative and helpful in your tenure so far?
Absolutely. And I think that really is a lot of what the MMPC endeavors to do, is to work with investigators with a lot of different expertise and, add our expertise, but collaborate with them in a way that's most useful for them. And so, some MMPC users want to dive really deep into the basics of the metabolism, maybe in a particular tissue, maybe in the whole animal. Others are really interested in getting a great metabolic snapshot and pairing that with very different sorts of expertise that they may have. For example, maybe in genetics, in neurobiology, in vascular biology, or whatever the other area is. And so I think to do that very well and understand the intersection between metabolism and many other fields in physiology and pathophysiology, we have to approach it collaboratively, and we really do enjoy that.
Oh, I love this. I love this so much. I just have a few more questions, but this is so great so far. So thank you, Dr. Perry. What's one thing you've done in your career that your younger self would be proud of?
So honestly, my favorite thing about the job is mentoring. And I really have tried to pay it forward and bring a lot of junior scientists into the lab. I think the world I had alluded to before, how the world we live in and are doing science in is different than it was 20 years ago. And one of the great things about that is it's made it much easier for us to mentor people, even at different places. So we've started in my lab mentoring a lot of high school students and undergrad students remotely to do image analysis, gene expression analysis, et cetera, and see how things that we can pick up in publicly available data can, tell us meaningful things about the science behind the particular disease context that we're looking at. And it's been just a wonderful experience working with these junior scientists and bringing them in and seeing their excitement and their passion. And so I would say I am very proud of having pursued that and excited to continue.
And I really feel like you're almost doing that for your younger self because someone reached their hand out for you and allowed you to do that when you were in high school. So I really do. The full circle moment is just kind of like it's a tie through this entire interview, and I'm loving that. How do you gauge success in this field as a woman?
Yeah, I think really the success, I think, is loving what we do day to day. I tell people that I talk to about my career path, I really do believe that it's the best job in the world, and I'm so happy and feel so lucky that I get to do it. And so I think, success really is making a positive contribution to science and to the world through science. And that can take many different forms. It can take making foundational discoveries, or it can take the form of, making smaller types of progress and steps, whether it be in scientific experiments, in mentoring, in teaching, et cetera. And so I think what success looks like is going to be very different for everyone. I have figured out that there are some things in this job that I'm really good at and some things that I'm less good at. And so I try to focus on the things that I'm good at because that's where I can, make a positive contribution most.
I love that. And speaking of just, I guess, making a positive contribution, I don't want to glaze over the fact that you're a co-director. And I know that in these roles, these are not necessarily female dominated roles. And so even being in the position that you're in, how does that feel, having come from where you come from in your career journey to being where you are now? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have been very fortunate to have had really a wonderful lifelong mentor. Dr. Jerry Schulman, the director of our MMPC, was both my PhD and postdoc mentor, and certainly made a great investment in my training, and has continued to be supportive in my journey. So with that, I haven't felt like I've had to do that much to create a space for myself. I do feel like I've had access to that space. I think it's been a process for me in terms of learning to use my voice maybe more vocally. And I think that's a thing that a lot of us work on throughout our careers. We're not supposed to be fully cooked when we come into this job, and if we are, then what else is there to do? So that's a continuing progression, but I have felt that the metabolic community is certainly very welcoming of diverse perspectives, wherever and whoever those perspectives may come from.
I love that, and I'm grateful that you had people who stood before you and also held their hand out to help you and help you get to where you are today. So that's also amazing, just having allies and people who will support you in your journey. My last question is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to a young woman in STEM today?
I think the first thing is to that I do believe this can be the best job in the world if it is the best job in the world for you. So I advise not only young women, but anybody coming up to really figure out where their skills and passions align and pursue that, even if it's not the quote unquote traditional path. So I'll just comment. I started grad school actually as an MD PhD student, but made the decision that the medical side, while I respect it tremendously, was not where I was going to make the best contribution, and really was not my ultimate passion, and that I would be better as a straight PhD than I would be with the sum of either half of the MD PhD. And I then stayed at Yale for each stage of my training, and then to open my lab, which is not typical, but worked for me. And so I very much encourage people to really, feel comfortable taking the sort of unusual path, even if that's not, maybe what the blueprints look like in front of them, if that works for them.
It almost sounds like taking that calculated risk is essentially what could help lead you to where you're ultimately supposed to be. And that sounds like what you did. And I think that's just such a great piece of advice for anybody in any field that they find themselves in. So thank you so much, Dr. Perry, for this awesome time and conversation. And I hope that someone really will get something from this and be encouraged in their journey. But that concludes our Women's History Month series interview today.
Thank you so much, Kanisha. It was really a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.